Hello everybody and welcome to a list video here at Playing Board Games. I'm joined by Daniel from Quick Learner. How's it going?
What's up? Doing pretty well. Excited to talk about some cards again and another list video, which are always pretty sick.
Yeah, it's been a while since we've done one of these, so I'm excited to talk about 5 sleeper cards from the Evergreen starter decks. So, what's a sleeper card? It's a card that, like a card that isn't obviously incredible, or we feel like the general consensus isn't that the card is like, oh my god, this card's gonna like bust things wide open, right? But rather cards that we think are going to be strong pieces of decks going forward, or rather pieces that the community might be like one day sharing a post like, does anyone else think that this card is actually pretty good? So that's what we're going here. These are just called shots, so we actually could be completely wrong about some of these cards, but these are just the cards that we looked at here to figure out what we think are cards that are going to be shining in the future and be like very, very nice once you actually start putting them together in decks and all that.
And you know what? These are just vehicles for us to yap about cards.
Mm-hmm.
So I think one way or another, we're going to have some fun talking about these new cards that are coming out. So I'm looking forward to it.
Heck yeah. So let's go to your number, the first one here. These are, I was going to say they are in no specific order, but they're actually in a very precise order. But the numbers don't matter for this. So just for people at home. This is not like what the most sleeper card is going down from 5 to 1. So I'll throw this one to you, Daniel, for your first card, which is...
This is the level 1 police dog. And it's an interesting card. I think that the ability here during attack or investigation at your location, exhausts police dog performing investigator, so it doesn't have to be you, gets +2 skill value for this test. You know what I like in this game, Justin? I like passing tests. That's kind of important.
It is nice. It
And
is nice.
it's a bit of a tough ask, though, when you think about most allies that you put in the deck to give you like +1 to a stat that you like. This is giving you +2 only once per round, and maybe in the future we get some more synergy with like readying the police dog or something else, but in Legacy that already exists. I think just being able to figure out on any given turn, like what do I need to do? Do I need to investigate? Do I need to attack? Is it someone else who needs the help? Makes this card pretty good.
Mm-hmm.
The only part that I think stinks is that the 1/1 soak means that you don't really want this guy to leave play, so putting any damage or horror on him just defeats the whole purpose when you think about like the level 0 options in Guardian, like the rookie cop especially, who actually has some soak. Like the soak here, it's not really relevant. So that means you need to probably pick up charisma. Maybe in the future there's gonna be some more ways of having more allies in play, more
Mm-hmm.
police or creature synergy. I don't know, but I like the looks of this thing, and I think I mean, I think the effect is good. It's just that the ally slot's a little tough.
Yeah, so what I really like about Police Dog is the video that we recently recorded, which what makes a card good, and the versatility on this card is absolutely insane. And I think that the
Hmm.
versatility is the part of a card and card evaluation that I think is the hardest to grasp on first look. I think to discover how versatile a card is, you need to actually like either play a lot of Arkham, so like you can kind of just like see the use cases, you can see all the different angles, or alternatively you need to actually try it out in decks, see where it sings. And I think that that's where sleeper cards really shine. So I think this is a really good choice. It was actually my pick as well. I did
Oh,
choose
okay.
something different, but this was definitely on my for sleeper card here, because you're right, it's not just you. You've been able to use it for other people, and being able to use it during downtime to help yourself get better or someone else get better at an investigation test is actually really, really powerful. This guy is like a perception or an overpower on a stick, which is a very nice effect.
Like a baby Garish Kadakia from Chapter 1, right?
Yeah.
And that costs 4 XP. It's got the soak, it's got the healing, right? And it costs 4 resources to put into play, but the +2 to most tests that you're doing in this game is really nice.
Yeah.
And even just like the output, compare this to Rookie Cop, which I did a second ago, that is really there, I think, for the soak. The free clue is nice. But if you get to investigate like over 2 rounds, and pass the test because of this guy. It's like getting two clues. So,
Hmm.
there's some good ceiling on this card.
Yep, 100%. All right, let's go to mine here, which is like Police Dog was there, but in efforts to make the list a little more variety on the list, I went with a card that, for people who know me, shouldn't be a surprise that I think this card is better than it reads, and that is Extended Barrel. One cost, one experience, fast flow during your turn, attached to a firearm asset you control. You get +1 skill value while attacking with attached asset. This is reliable. The reliable is a legacy card that you could attach to an item asset you control, and you got +1 for any skill tests on that asset. This is has less variety, and like it has less like a ceiling, and also like a lower floor than what Reliable does. But Reliable is a card that I would put into a lot of my decks because the card was free. It's just you put it on your item and made things better. But now, Extended Barrel here is specifically targeted towards firearms, so again, smaller scope than what Reliable can give you, but +1 all the time while attacking with a firearm asset is very big. And the reason why it is very big is because, 1, you're going to be wanting to hit your attacks, 2, ammo is limited, so you want to be able to hit your attacks even more, and 3, there's already a card in here in this Tommy Muldoon Evergreen starter deck that allows you to reload ammo. There's also some really good small guns and big guns to pay off for Extended Barrel, and any gun that is now added, any firearm that is added in the future, Extended Barrel is going to be something that you can work it improves the quality of Extended Barrel. While Extended Barrel is never going to be a card that you're like, oh my god, this card is the best card, it's a card that is actually going to be an incredible workhorse in your deck in the same way that Reliable was.
Yeah, the biggest thing to me is that instead of saying I need the +1 on my ally all the time, you're moving that +1 over to the weapon. And I mean, look, the ally's better. It's doing more for you, I think. But if you don't have that in play yet, you got to have something. And this is probably better than most other cards in your deck that might help you pass tests, because this just lives for quite a few rounds.
And yeah, I think that's a great point regarding this is like the +1 for my ally, where a card like Extended Barrel, once it goes into your deck, it can change the ally slot from what is the ally I'm going to play versus what is the ally I should play. Are you going to play Logan Hastings in this deck because he wants to give you the +1 fist? It's not a bad choice, but maybe there's an ally that is actually just better for your deck, right? Like maybe you want to be soaking and tanking with Bodyguard 2 in the long run, and that'll Extended Barrel fixes that hole that fills the hole that Logan Hastings just left, and additionally it also lowers your curves substantially, which is another thing to consider as well.
And even if you're running multiple allies, sometimes they don't live forever. You need to use them for soak, and you aren't as sad if they leave play because you're still getting your plus skill value here. You know what this card is? It's magnifying glass, right?
It's magnifying glass. Yep, that's why I like Reliable so much, because it is just magnifying glass for your weapons. And this is I already said when we talked about this with Travis and Bryn on the channel that I'm gonna bring a gun. I'm gonna play in Legacy, Extended Barrel, and Reliable. Like, it's gonna happen. Now with Shotgun, you get +4 to all your attacks. Like that's a pretty legit build, like a pretty legit foundation to making sure your Shotgun is very efficient and very reliable, but asks very little in order to get there. All right, we're going to go on now to the secret cards. We have one from each class on each of our lists. That's the order that I was mentioning earlier. So I'll throw this one here to you.
Yeah, this is Psychology Student, and I think Medical Student from Chapter 1 was a really nice card. And Psychology Student is kind of the same deal, except for it heals horror instead of the 1 damage and 1 horror that the Med Student did, and this is just in the secret class. I think a lot of Carolyn's deck, you want to heal horror, right? That's the whole point, is good. There's not a huge number of ways of healing horror, but eventually you'll need to find something, and this is a pretty nice economical use of, I think, your 2 resources to get you a free clue, and potentially you're getting some more uses out of other stuff, maybe another investigator. It needs the horror soak, or the healing rather. I don't think there's any allies that care about this right now. I think right now the allies are more on the damage side as far as uses go, but maybe in the future allies are going to be like Field Agent from Chapter 1, that you put horror on Field Agent to uh, do some cool stuff there to get clues. Maybe we'll get something else.
Yeah.
But I think the value here is pretty apparent. Now, for other seekers like Trish and Joe, the other ones who can play this right now, the two horror might be just a better thing to have in your back pocket anyway. So I like this. I like this card a lot. And then you drop the psych student for something else down the line, or you just take the 1-on-1 from some enemy attack or treachery, and then you feel pretty good.
Yeah, or even just like in the long term, treat it as like an event, like that's
Right.
like where he can live as well.
Yeah, and there is an event that does the heal 2 horror thing, but maybe you just need a few of these, right? You need more than just one in your deck, and this does something else, which is gives you the extra 1-on-1 later.
Yeah, I think psychology student is a great card. You're right. Medical student is very powerful, actually a very powerful ally in Legacy, and I would not be surprised to see Psychology Student fill a similar spot where it's, again, not going to be that card that you're like, you draw and you're like, oh my god, this has changed the game completely. Like, this is, we've won this turn, but rather instead just that workhorse that is going to do a lot more than it seems on the tin. All right, let's go to my Seeker card, which I'm going to set the scene a little bit. This card is, I don't know, I haven't seen anybody really talk about this card, but I actually think this card is insane.
Okay.
And that is the Autopsy Report. The 3 cost, 3 experience hand slot tome. As a reaction after enemy or location is defeated, exhausted, investigate with your book. You get plus X book for this investigation, where X is the defeated enemy's printed health, to a maximum of plus 5. I think that this card does get worse at lower player counts. I'm going to talk about that right now. But at 2 is like where I think it starts to become more reliable. But at 3 or 4 player, I actually think this card is going to activate every round, which is a very nice amount of free clues to get. Enemies will be drawn throughout the scenario. Enemies are going to be defeated throughout the scenario unless things are going very badly. So you hope that doesn't actually happen. Turning those enemies into free clues is really nice. There's a lot of things where, like, you look at this card and you might think of something like, why can't I think of the dissection tools, where they have to defeat the enemies to pump it up. And a lot of those times, those cards weren't played generally on, like, by like me, because it's one of those things where you generally have to have everything fall into place to make it work. But that's because things like dissection tools, well, I think are still playable. I've seen them. I played them with Daniel. Like, there are places where they do sing, right? But generally, the payoff for that card is a little bit lower than just like free clue, right? Generally, it's get more fist, get more foot, but at a very slow rate. Just a clue is a much easier thing to just immediately see the value for, and it's one of those things where getting those free clues allow you more time to do things that you otherwise wouldn't want to spend the time doing, because you're just doing investigate actions or trying to advance the scenario. That's where I think the Autopsy Report is going to really shine, where you get 2 of these out of here. You set up a situation where if you draw an enemy, you're going to get 2 free clues. If you don't, you're going to get those clues, move to the next scenario, and like to the next location and do it again. It's a very easy process to work with, especially in the style of Arkham play that is rewarded for players sticking together, which a lot of people do. Albeit there's a lot of now cards that are going to try to convince you to go on your own, but there are also payoff cards in event. There's a lot more event killing cards for Seekers, that Seekers are able to actually now trigger these Autopsy Reports even by themselves in some ways. So I think that this card is actually a good use of your hand slots, and I think even actually in the long term, pretty competitive, not better than Magnifying Glass. But again, I think that they've done a good job with these new cards of making Magnifying Glass less ubiquitous than it was at this time in the original core. At that point, it's just like, I'm only playing this. In Daisy, I'm still holding one of them. but with Autopsy Report, with the book that Carolyn can use to take horror to get clues, right? Like these are all the fingerprint kit, bean and core, even the local map is not a bad card. Like these are all like nice options that I think they did a good job of making the hand slot pretty competitive, and I think Autopsy Report is the strongest like top end that we have for it.
I'm excited to play this one. It's been on my list of, I think even in lower player counts in solo, I'm thinking about it's refunding you the actions for dealing with the enemy. It's kind of like an old Roland Banks in a hand slot. For,
Yeah, it kind of is. It kind of is.
Maybe you're not playing two of them in solo, but if you have one, you shoot the enemy. I'm thinking of Joe Diamond here, right?
Yep.
You shoot the enemy, you get the +2 or 3 to the investigation. It's kind of turns the enemies into clue pinatas, and that seems pretty good considering this doesn't like have uses in the way that old Evidence or Greta Wagner did, right? So this is just kind of here for the rest of your scenario, and that seems really cool.
Yeah. And like it giving it the plus X book is also very impactful as well. It's like one of those things where you read the card and you're like, oh yeah, it should do that. But then you think about like a Seeker would probably be able to get by just with this, but now it allows any sort of level 3 Mystic to be able, level 3 Seeker to be able to make this like card actually playable regardless of what there is. Like maybe there's going to be one that has High Fist but 3 book, like what Vincent Lee should have been, right? Like, and I think that that's a really cool thing for them to potentially explore.
Yeah, and I do think that minimum, right? You kill Whippoorwill, that's +1.
It's +1.
That's magnifying glass already.
Yep.
Right? Like, why not? Why wouldn't you just use it every time you can?
Yeah,
and
really,
you can commit other things, commit your deduction, you get more clues out of this if you need to.
And I'm very curious to see, because one thing that I noticed and that we talked about even in the new core is how enemies are designed, where there are like enemies that are big and scary, but there's also a lot of small kind of utility enemies that are there to hinder you. And Autopsy Report, it doesn't care in the long term if you're just here to get clues. And like there's a lot of small little things you can poke down to take advantage of, which I think is very nice.
I think even in the situation where you're splitting up, with some smart play, I think, and it may sound like this won't happen that much, but I think it can. Let's say you're playing with a Miguel who has traps, around the different locations on the map, right? You're at a location, but he's not, but he triggers his trap because the enemy entered your location. You could even just be doing this in the Mythos phase, right? Like something enters the location, it gets killed by a trap or some bomb or something, and then you do your investigation. That's not bad.
Yep. All right, let's hop to the Rogue class here with your card, which is...
Pay Your Dues is a very interesting card to me because it reads a lot like another card that I'll compare it to in a second. Let's read it anyways. It costs X. It is a parlay, and you choose a non-elite enemy at your location with X remaining health. Hey, more X remaining health business, or X health. That enemy disengages from each investigator and gains aloof until the end of the round. Discover one clue at your location. So the card I'm comparing this one to is Breaking and Entering, which is in the core, which feels very similar. You're getting a clue, you're getting rid of an enemy to some extent, right? And it's not going to bother you for the rest of the round or anyone. It works on enemies that are not engaged with you in particular, given that this is a parlay. So, like, what's the difference? Like, one could be that this card costs a lot more than 2 resources if it's a bigger enemy, but it could cost only 1 if it's just 1 remaining health. But I think the biggest thing is it's not a test. You just pay your money and move on. And while the other card, Breaking and Entering, works on elite enemies and this doesn't, there's an interesting interplay here about like, do I run both? Do I run just one of them? How likely am I to pass the test in Breaking and Entering? I don't know. There's like something to be said for these similar cards that are testless versus the ones that require a little bit of luck from the chaos bag. I don't think Breaking and Entering is very hard to get the succeed by 2, and you kind of want to do that anyway in Andre or Trish. But maybe this is something for Dexter, right? Who doesn't really have either of those other stats and still wants the same effect.
Yeah, so a card like Pay Your Dues, I think talking about it in relation to Breaking and Entering is very, very apt. And I think it comes down to the choice of, we're already seeing the power of, with deck building, you can choose what is the best card for your deck. So breaking and entering is going to be good, like you said, in Andre and Trish. But what if there is a fighter that comes out, and sometimes it's like, well, there's this enemy here, but I want to like progress the game and discover a clue. I don't need to kill this guy this turn. How can I use these parlay cards to take advantage of it? So it's, again, finding the best card for your deck, not just the best card. That's like where you level up your deck building and are able to shift that over, and I think Pay Your Dues represents a card like that, because you're right, with a 3 health enemy you have to pay one more resource than you do with breaking and entering, but you ain't pulling a token. It's happening no matter what. So you got to weigh the value of that, and if the idea is advancing the game while protecting the team, you just find the one that's best, and I think Pay Your Dues is a really nice card for that.
There's two other things that I think are different. Again, this is what makes talking about cards so fun, is to sort of think through, what do I know about the game where, while on the tin it feels very similar, and in, I don't know what percentage, like 75% of the cases it's the same. This is not an investigation, right? So if there's anything that blocks or taxes investigations, this doesn't worry about that. The shroud value either, of course. And then we have that new keyword called doomed. And the more that shows up, the more we just want to leave enemies alone. I know the evade on breaking and entering kind of does the same thing, but the more that is useful, then, as you say, if you're a fighter, maybe this is a good solution for you instead of just going guns blazing.
Yep, 100%. All right, my card here is right under their noses, the level 3 version, not the level 0 version. So this is a trick. It's an illicit, fast play after you successfully evade an enemy. Discover one clue at your location. If you succeeded by 2 or more, you may discover one clue at a connecting location as well. This is a card that I think kind of got... I mean, people did talk about, hey, this card actually does seem pretty good. But I think it did kind of get lost a little bit within the event shotgun that was fired at people from the Rogue spoiler week. But this card is essentially just Seeking Answers, level 2, which allows you to grab those clues at other locations. Anytime a card allows you as a player to grab 2 clues, is always something that's worth flagging. Right? This is why, for example, a card like Snitch was very powerful, because it allows you to just grab 2 clues. That baseline of 2 clues, whether it be from one location or split between 2 locations, it suddenly just changes what the game is. It is a little bit expensive XP-wise, but that is the Rogue class. They have the high top-end cards. They're going to, I imagine, eventually, I think that there's going to be another XP card somewhere down the road to kind of work with all these, or we're going to get some sort of change with how the shorter campaigns work. So 3 XP is actually kind of 2 XP once things go, and it's more of like a balancing mechanism for what players get what. But everything I read about this card is good. This is a card that I'm going to see people play, and it's going to be a workhorse in their deck, and suddenly it's just like, oh, dang, this is actually so really, really nice and efficient.
So would you say that everyone was paying attention to all of the other events when this card was right under their noses?
Yes, I would say that. I would say that. I mean, yeah. I even kind of like stopped. I went cross-eyed when all those events were coming out. I was just like, oh, another event in its upgraded version. Okay, I'm not going to read these right now.
Yeah, so Corset Trish, right? Getting the extra evade, pretty interesting, right? You get to turn the evade into 2 extra clues. Why not?
In Legacy, this is a trick. So Rita, who's also already evading and dealing damage, can also grab some clues in the meantime, right? Like, I think that this is a card that also even has Legacy playability, which is, it's a little bit expensive XP-wise again, but I do think that, I mean, XP is literally falling from the sky in Legacy, right? So, yeah.
I will say that it is interesting to me that they seem to have maybe re-configured this idea of getting 2 clues, having to split them up. Right, we saw Will the Cosmos is the event in Mystic in the core that gets 1 from one location, 1 from another one, and that feels like it's the new Drawn to the Flame, which got you 2 from your own location. Snitch, and look what I found, level 2 were really powerful cards because the versatility in
Hmm.
that it was 2 from here or 2 from there, or you could split it up. And maybe they're toning that down a bit and saying, okay, no, just 1 from here, 1 from another location, and you need to play around having there be clues in both places if you want to play this card, which
Yeah,
is
no, so
okay by
yeah,
me.
I agree. I think it adds a little bit of risk where it's like I'm gonna leave this victory location with one clue to grab this like later. It gives you a lot of a player to kind of like solve the puzzles with the tools you have rather than just be like 2 clues, me get 2 clues here. You know, like it kind of asks you some different questions.
Yep.
Um, I think generally it's again we're kind of seeing something I talked about as how the core box kind of gave me the vibe that this was a more violent Arkham because everyone had options to deal with enemies, right? And I think that it's the follow through is here where it's less of the idea that this is a more violent Arkham, but rather they're prioritizing and kind of pushing players to split up more and take some time away from each other as opposed to always being like connected at the hip. Unless you're a guardian, in which case they say, "Hey, be with your friends because we still have some support cards for you," which I think is really neat. All right, on to the Mystic class here. Your card is
Retribution. There's 2 level 2 spell events that feel very similar in terms of what they're trying to do. And I think this one's kind of neat. And maybe all the other cards are a bit less flashy. This one's actually quite flashy. But I like the idea. 2 cost, level 2 card, spell and spirit. Fast, play 1 an enemy attacks an investigator at your location. That's any investigator. You take all damage and horror from this attack. A little bit of support there. But really, you're playing this for each point of damage or horror taken, deal 1 damage to an enemy at your location. Oh boy, we can do 4 or 6 Teslas damage to some big ol' elite enemies, some ancient ones. Yeah, sign me up.
yeah, yeah,
It's
no,
kind of risky, but I like this idea. I think it's neat.
there's a lot of payoffs for this too. There's some good foundation for how you as a mystic can take advantage of these effects to be able to like Marie draws cards, Jim Culver allows your investigator to draw cards, and maybe even gain resources if you have the upgraded version. And it's one of those things where you can choose where to trigger this, where it has like a really good top end, which is I can use this to blow the hell out of an elite enemy, like just hit a boss monster for 4. Like that's pretty good because odds are you'll be able to tank a 2-2 attack at some point in a campaign. You're kind of like it can happen, so it's going to happen. Or you can use it to just like kill a small enemy, right? Like use it to kill a 1 health enemy that you just take the damage for. You can use it to tank for other people. You can use it to kill 2 health enemy. The fact that there's so many, like the low end is really good and the high end is really good, makes Retribution, I think, a very impactful card.
Yeah, I don't want to spoil the core set too much, but I was surprised that there's a lot of damage and horror on enemies,
Mm-hmm.
especially the big enemies, and they are there for a while. They're not just they show up at the end and that's it. Um, they're ubiquitous, and maybe that's going to happen in future campaigns. I don't know, but it feels like this card can put in a lot more work than people who are just saying, maybe. Like, no, 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 no. Especially if you're replaying the campaign, you will know when to play this.
Yep. I look at this card, and while it's not as powerful, I think, it reminds me of Toe to Toe.
Yeah.
Where the idea is, but it also it's not a dodge, but it also is in like the dodge area, right, where it gives you as a player, and this is something that I've tried to push onto the community quite a bit, where enemy manipulation like this, while it's not on the same level as dodge, gives you a lot of power in the enemy phase, which is generally the phase where you have the least power. So being able to just like find more value in the phases that is hard to find value is a good way for you to just like take advantage away from the game and give the advantage back to you as a player.
Yeah. At this point, I should also point out what that other card is. It's called. Uh-oh. Is it Blood Ward? Yeah, it's Blood Ward. This is the other level 2 one that is kind of the dodge, and it lets you heal from the investigator who's being attacked. But that one only works on non-elites. It is good, like you need the healing, you can kind of play it that way. This card, it just excites me.
Yes. I think they've done a good job with the Mystic. Like this new like Mystic tank support build is actually really cool. I saw some people talking about how this can be a really good deck for Sister Mary, and I agree, right? Like I think that this is a nice place for Sister Mary to explore. Brad, which one?
Alvin.
Yes, Calvin as well. Yeah, for the spirit. Yeah, like there's a lot of really nice pieces here. Let's see what my Mystic card is. Let me tell you. It's the Offering Bowl! 1 cost, 3 offerings on its uses. If there are no offerings on it, discard it. As a lightning bolt, spend 1 offering and exhaust Offering Bowl, take 1 damage, and gain 2 resources. What's that card that Agnes played, Forbidden Knowledge? The one that you could move over 1 for 1 as a horror? Move over! You're bad! No one ever played you outside of Agnes. But Offering Bowl, on the other hand, is actually really good. It's one of those things where... I think this one doesn't excite people that I've seen generally for 2 reasons. One, people are scared of taking damage, right? They're like, that means I'm going to die. But 2, they're too caught up in the economy of like this. They're like this. I mean, playing board games is partly responsible for this, so I'm not going to bag on people too much. But the idea of that this is 1 cost and an action and a card. So how many turns does it take until this gets the value back? But the correct answer to that question is rather what other value can you squeeze from this card, right? We look at Marie Lambeau. She gets to draw 2 and discard 1. We add Jim Culver to the mix. Now you get to draw 3 and discard 1, essentially. Not all at once, but like the same sort of thing. You get the upgraded Jim Culver, and this card is now giving you an emergency cash and a card. It's one of those things where there are a lot of different pieces that you can put together for Offering Bowl, which is what is going to make it sing. The 2 resources is a reward, but the reality is the 1 damage on this card is also actually a reward. It also really helps the Mystic class in being able to have ways to control some of the cards that might have Doom on them. So for example, the Arcane Initiate, right, where you can use that to grab some spells, maybe even use the Will of the Cosmos to grab some clues, and then just kill it with the Offering Bowl and get 2 resources. I think that this is a card. I mean, the Mystic economy, both card draw and resources, has kind of become cracked in this new core set, which is very strange for the class. And I think Offering Bowl is a card that I'm going to be playing quite often into the far-flung future of Chapter 2 and even in Legacy.
Ooh, I think this card is quite good. I think maybe why people are sleeping on it, if they are, it's that Izzy probably doesn't want to do this in the core set just because she only has the 5 health and doesn't get the extra advantage that Marie and maybe even Dexter can get. So I'm a little scared, but one thing that's interesting about it is that the damage is something you could heal with the bandages. You could put on, what's his name, Alexi, right? So it's not a bad pick if you're looking for resources. I actually think even just if you don't care about the damage that much, the economy is good. This is 1 action, 1 card, 1 resource, and you get 6 out of it. That's pretty reasonable, I think, compared to similar things we've seen in the Investigator starter decks, or the Evergreen starter decks, rather. This feels pretty good because you're never taking actions after the first one.
Yep. It is, yeah. A lot of the rogue cards, they kind of feel slow like that in comparison to this. I like the concept behind the take 1 damage being like the action cost, right? But I think it does allow Offering Bowl to really shine in comparison to some of the other ones.
I mean, really, cards, for Marie, you get to use this during any phase.
Yep, any phase. Great. Yep. Do not sleep on Offering Bowl, people. Put it in all your decks. You're going to love it. Yep. I promise you that. All right, we have 2 more cards, so we'll throw it to your Survivor card here, which is...
It's more economy, I think. Pocket Knife is a card that I have tried out, and I think it's pretty neat. Now, in the old Arkham, we kind of talked about how a one-handed weapon that doesn't do extra damage is really looking for a reason to exist. And I think they've done a good job of making there be a reason to exist in Chapter 2. In particular, I don't know if you run this in Legacy, but a couple things that I've noticed when playing a small card pool is you are desperate for economy, just like anywhere. And this card, while it says you fight, it's also, to me, it's action compression between the resource and the fight action. I think that's perfectly reasonable in decks where you can spare the hand slot. But it's more than that, right? How do you get it so that you are defeating an enemy? In the Miguel deck, which is where this is coming from, you're probably playing a bunch of these traps and thinking about how I deal damage to enemies that are like maybe 1 or 2 health. And then the ones that are 3 health, you have a bit of a problem because the traps don't do any more than 2 damage, other than the upgraded the bomb, a makeshift bomb or whatever it is. So you need to figure out how to get that third point of damage, or maybe you want to leave the trap out and not discard it for the extra damage. I think lie in wait is the one that works this way, and you need to use something to get the extra damage out. Miguel himself is a 4 agility investigator, or 4 foot, as some people say. The +1 skill value is really good. So you're getting like basically a +2 compared to your basic punching. And I think with Daniel Jameson and other skills that you have, turning this into a foot test is really good. So I think this thing has a reason to exist. There's a little bit of competition with the meat cleaver in terms of what do you want to defeat the enemy? Do you want the horror heal or do you want the resource? But when I played this and got use out of it, I really wanted the resource. So it's a nice thing to have.
Yeah, I think that pocket knife is, I agree with you, is going to have a hard time like finding space in Legacy, but a lot of these cards are designed with Chapter 2 in mind. And melee weapons, if you might not have noticed, people, they kind of suck now. They're kind of like where they should have been from the start of the game. It's one of those things where like the design is actually much healthier for melee weapons to be where they are. It was funny because when we did our blind run of Brethren of Ash, Travis didn't bring a melee weapon. He only brought guns. Like, and Bryn only had his Cosmic Flame, and me as Izzy, I had a meat cleaver, and in order to go all in on it, I had to die in the scenario, right? Like, it's one of those things where melee weapons are not just set and forget and have them work. So with melee weapons, you got to look at what are they giving you, because the melee weapons, in theory, are now designed to be limited for 2 damage, or alternatively, what is the poke damage? What does the 1 damage that they provide? What's the payoff for that? And I think Pocket Knife has the versatility where it can be one of the 2 skills that you want to use, whether that be combat or agility, allows you to really shine and make it work there. But then also it's like the resources for defeating them is some nice kind of like drip economy to go with it. So I think that this is a nice piece in Chapter 2 in order to take advantage of, the finding that third point of damage, which is a lot less free than it was back in the day.
Also assumes that you have like everything else at your beck and call. And again, very early in Chapter 2 here, you don't have the I will find my favorite weapon and you're done, right? Set it and forget it. You want to put something out there. Like I said at the very beginning, this is a nice little full circle, the +2 on a skill test, because passing a skill test is good, is important. This giving you +1 skill value when you choose the type of skill test that you want to use, the difficulty is probably going to be a lot easier. You're able to, maybe use Daniel Jameson again if you fail the test. Like there's a lot of pieces in Survivor that to me, when I've tried this out, feel much more like Survivor is supposed to be than maybe what things turned out to be at the end of Legacy, where you can just kind of be like any old class and get your stat really far up and you're good. I think this is a good piece of cobbling together a bunch of stuff, and then the sum of the parts actually is quite powerful.
Yeah, a big thing too, I think, is that cards like this kind of really, I've started to notice them more due to the elusive keyword. I feel like the design team, this design team created the elusive keyword, and I think they're really exploring what the elusive keyword can do. And I think cards like this with Pocket Knife are easy ways for you to like, hey, I'm going to just get this elusive enemy somewhere else this turn and maybe make some space with it without requiring any sort of other commitment to go with it. Because my gun is how I'm going to, or my something else, my spell is how I'm going to take these enemies out. But the Pocket Knife is here to just like poke the elusive enemy, get a point, and then deal with them more next turn.
Yeah, that's a really good point.
All right, I'm going to bookend this video. We started with a dog. We're ending with a dog. Hunting,
hunting
dog. Yeah. This is a 1/1 ally. As a reaction, when an enemy enters play, exhaust hunting dog. Move once towards that enemy's location. If you haven't picked up what I've been putting down, is I feel like the meta is going to shift slightly for Chapter 2 and how you approach the game of Arkham Horror, the card game. Where before it was very much stay together, become a ball of death, use your melee weapons to just kill things, while your seeker was just like, please help me, I can't do anything except get clues. I think the game is pushing you as a player to split up more and also become more self-sufficient, and it's giving you a lot of options to kind of either catch up or control enemies like positioning and player positioning. And I think Hunting Dog is a good example of that, where it'll allow you as a player to move towards these enemies. Hunting Dog also has a really good way of dealing with Acolyte enemies in early, like even in Legacy, where if an enemy spawns at an empty location, suddenly you're knocking on that Acolyte's door being like, hello, I have to kill you now because you've amassed some doom. And while there's a card like another card here that came out that I think people flagged was Loner, because that was, people were like, oh my god, it's kind of like Pathfinder but worse. And it is kind of like Pathfinder but worse. But Hunting Dog is also kind of like Pathfinder but worse. Now, admittedly, it does take up the ally slot, and a lot of people are going to fall back onto the usual pieces, like the usual what they consider to be the best cards. We have like Alexi is going to fill that slot that people are just going to put because, hey, Peter Sylvester is good, Alexi is good. But again, as you're building your decks and you try to start to explore what is best, don't ask yourself what is the best card, but rather what is the best card for this deck. Because if you are trying to hunt down enemies, a Hunting Dog might be more efficient than the extra soak that Alexi can provide. So it's just one of those things that I think that that's where this card is going to really shine. Its effect is very powerful. It's free movement. And it asks very little. It does give very little in terms of soak, but you're also Survivor. You have a ton of other options to get there, and a lot of really good healing tools as well. The healing in Survivor is actually pretty cracked in this new box, where I think it already makes Alexi less of a necessity than you think, because there's already some other good allies, like Daniel Jameson, I think is another really good ally, and I think Hunting Dog is up there with it, and I think this little guy is going to be pretty impactful in the long term.
Yeah, it's interesting you point out the soak situation because, yeah, Miguel has 8/8.
Yep.
He's not really gonna die.
Yeah, if you play Alexi in Miguel, you're probably actually making a mistake. Yeah.
Yeah. Daniel's quite good. I mean, I would know.
Yeah.
The Hunting Dog, I think, is a good addition, but to me, it really is a true sleeper here because, strangely, in the core, nothing spawns in empty locations. None of the core set encounter cards, unlike the old Acolyte, Wizard of the Order type of stuff. But that's going to come back. That's not going to be there for forever. But as you say, the way that you make that work is if you split up, right? Mm-hmm. So this is essentially, if you play a little differently, instead of preemptively staying with your squishy seeker, you can go off and do something else, and then the Hunting Dog brings you back to where the seeker has drawn the enemy that you need to help. So that's really where I think it lives right now, which is interesting, which allows a lot of cool things to happen. Additionally, there are other cards that can spawn enemies during the investigator phase, right? Mm-hmm. Paint the Town Red, we've talked about. This one has Stalk Prey, I think. Again, I think that doesn't do anything right now since almost everything spawns in your own location. But yeah, I think there will be a place for this and a play style where this actually triggers much more than you think.
Yeah. I think that this card also actually is kind of there's already like a creature deck in Legacy that I hope gets more support. I agree with what you said earlier about the police dog. I hope we get some sort of like collector but for creatures in the future. I think would be really cool. But like this guy is really nice already in that creature deck. The Charlie Kane petting zoo deck, like the Charlie Kane dog deck, like he'll be able to take advantage of it. I think that there's I think this guy's pretty neat.
Yeah, it's interesting when you think about the old starter decks, and Familiar Spirit, right, was the level 0 creature. Wasn't a creature though. in Jacqueline Fine that gave you an extra arcane slot, and you know it was cost 1 and didn't really give you much. And I think this is a huge improvement over I wonder what we can do to make this do something really cool. Mysterious Raven also was the level 0/1 in Stella Clark's deck, and that was good for what it did, but this is a different card. It fits in with the cycle, though, I think. So
yes, cool. Yeah. All right. Well, those were 5 sleeper cards from each of us from the Evergreen Starter Decks, cards that we think are going to shine a little bit brighter than they read on the tin. Let us know in the comments what you thought of these cards, and if you think there's any sleeper cards that we might have missed. Anything you want to say before I close out the video, Daniel?
Nope, this was fun.
Perfect. That's perfect. All right. Well, thanks for watching, everybody. I hope you enjoyed this. If you would like to support the channel, do so by liking, commenting, subscribing. Or if you want to go above and beyond, you can join all the names here on the Patreon. Lowest tier starts at $3 USD a month. I would appreciate your support if you do want to throw it this way. But otherwise, I'm just glad you're watching. In the meantime, thank you so much for watching. I hope you dug another list video here. I'll see you for a video sometime in the near future. Otherwise, have a good one. Thanks for watching. And as always, GG's.